2010 Taurus.
So now talk about the inspiration behind this, because it has a European flair.
I mean, there's definitely a connection between the European products that have come out recently and this current product. But I think if you look at it, the lines are a little bit more relaxed, lines are a little bit more sculpted, a little bit more agile, a little bit more athletic than you see in some of our European products. But I think that the overall aspiration of the car was that we wanted a much more sculpted, a much more bolder shape than we've ever had on the Taurus before.
So now, how did you start at Ford? I guess is a good question to ask.
That's a good question. How did I start? You know, actually, I had an opportunity to go to school in Detroit for Center for Creative Studies, College of Art and Design, a local school here in Detroit where designers can learn the trade and hopefully get hired, like I did by Ford.
So now, have you always been into automobiles, or how did you develop that passion?
Actually, when I was younger, it was just drawing. Anything. It wasn't just drawing cars specifically. It was just the ability to see lines and shapes that come to life on paper, regardless if it was comic books, regardless if it was, oh man, I even drew my sister's Michael Jackson album. It just starts with a love for drawing first, and then as I matured, I started falling more and more in love with cars, and then paper.
But now, what I'm really curious about is, because this is a very, very important car to the company. How did you become the person in charge of what people see first, which is the sheet metal, just the design language? How did you get that position?
I mean, I happened to finish a Flex. I worked on the Ford Flex, and it just so happened that I was free and I was given the opportunity. So I actually asked if I would like to participate on this D-side segment. So you know, I took the opportunity right away.
So now, can you kind of illustrate to us some of the things that you guys changed from the 500, which became the Taurus, to make this car here?
Well, I think if you look at the overall, shape, it is totally reskinned from the current Taurus today. It is still a D-size product. It still has a very similar wheelbase, but you will notice that the car has a much more athletic stance. It has a different roof height. It has a different wheel placement in terms of body to wheel relationship. But mainly, it is a reinterpretation of the Taurus, and actually the spirit of Taurus from the early 80s, so actually mid-80s. So I think when you look at the front grille, you look at headlamp placement, you look at all the serpentine curves that transfer energy from front to rear, it is a total reworking of the current Taurus.
Now, I've also heard that you guys did a lot of other stuff on the interiors too.
Yes. Well, the interiors are brand new too. You know, like Mama used to say, you know, it's not just the outside that counts; it's what's on the inside.
Can you show us some of what's going on inside?
Yeah.
All right.
I think the biggest deal on the interior is that you can see now it has a double brow. And essentially what that means is you have much more of like a Mustang kind of like feel on the IP, and then these lines actually flow from IP to console, and it actually creates a unique space for the occupant. You know, each occupant has its own space. But you can see that the sculpted lines that are on the exterior transfer on the interior, and it gives a much more muscular, a much more personalized car than the Taurus has ever been before.
Now, also, I guess this also runs with the EcoBoost engine.
Yes, it does.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, basically, the EcoBoost engine is a V6 property, a V6 power plant that has the output of a V8. And essentially what that means is you get the economy of a V6, but the horsepower of a V8. So, I mean, it's going to feel like a much more zippier, a much more sportier car.
Now, is there, I mean, I guess with this one, on the base engine, what is the output on that?
Well, I mean, I can't give you the specifics. I can't go into detail. But what we can do is tell you that you will be pleasantly surprised. The power plants are appropriate and responsive to a vehicle of this scale.
Now let's also go to the rear, because I noticed, I mean, obviously the clear corner lights and the trunk signature.
Kind of explain your inspiration there.
Well, I mean, you can see, if you look at the actual tail lamps and the graphics, you can see cars and Fords of old. I mean, it reeks of LTD. It reeks of previous Tauruses, actually, with just how there's a red shape with a white island in between it, and then of course with the chrome accent, which is a touch of class that we've added that they didn't have before. But just the proportion, just the scale of lamp is very reminiscent of Tauruses of the past. I think the inspiration really comes from an Interceptor concept car that we did a couple of years ago.
I was going to ask that.
You can see some of that influence on the car as well. But I think with the overhangs, with the chrome appointments, I mean, you can see it's a much more upscale car than it's been in the past.
So now, I mean, and that's a key point that you said that, because the Interceptor came to mind.
Oh, yeah.
I'm seeing that, but this is more like a rounder, more elegant, more poetic interpretation of the Interceptor.
Listen, why don't you just get up here and say that, because that's exactly what we were trying to do. You know, the Interceptor was a much more boxier, cubed off shape. And what we were trying to do with this is a much more timeless design. And remember, you know, these cars are going to be with us, you know, for years to come. So they need to age gracefully. So you can see a lot of attention went into the lines and the flowing of the lines, so that, you know, in a couple of years, the shape will still be relevant, the shape will still be beautiful.
Now, is this on the same platform as the MKS, or is it totally new for itself?
It is the same platform. It shares all the underpinnings, but it doesn't share any other sheet metal with the car. It is the same platform as the MKS.
And also on the Volvo S80.
That's exactly right. It is our deep platform. You know, it basically has a similar wheelbase, but overall length, in terms of all the sheet metal, it's all different. It's all different.
So for young aspiring individuals who would want to get an opportunity to design cars and actually see millions of their work, millions of copies of their work on the streets, how could they get in? What advice can you give them on how to get started?
The biggest advice to give anybody who wants to be a car designer is to love to draw. I think the ability to draw, you know, the knowledge of understanding how cars come together, and essentially, you know, just being inundated with the industry, I think will help you. But the number one key ingredient is the ability to sketch and to be able to create your ideas so that others can enjoy it.
And also, it's almost like a big renaissance too going on in the auto industry too, especially with the Detroit autos. Yourself, Ed Wellburn, Ralph Gills, being in charge of cars that basically are going to determine the viability in the future of these companies. Kind of give us your impression or your opinion on this renaissance and the opportunities that have been presented.
Well, I think I can't speak for Ed and I can't speak for Ralph, but I think the companies are looking at all solutions, and I think we're testimony of that. But I know for me in particular, you know, all we want is an opportunity to show how we can contribute. And hopefully contribute to the company's bottom line. And that's what this is about. This is not about Earl promoting Earl, but it's about having solutions that the company finds viable, that they can make money on.